Do you know when it was like, oh yeah, that was all fun. Look, big up, big up. Yeah, big up, big up, big up. Sorry about that. Man's having technical issues. First of all, Dave, don't leave me with any tech, yeah? Because if you leave me with your tech, what you're going to have is you're going to be seeing it on bloody repeat. Now, big up because tonight is a special guest. Dave from Talking Wolves is in the building. And for me, I really wanted, Dave, I'm not going to lie, I really wanted to have you on the show because I think this weekend's match is such a poignant game for both clubs. And so the fact that when you accepted the invitation, it just really, really excited me. But before we get into it, how are you, Dave? How's things for you? What's been happening?
Yeah, it's good, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's been busy start to the season for Wolves, which I'm sure we'll get into. Yeah, but keeping myself busy, man, and looking forward to the game this weekend.
Yeah, no, big up to you, mate. I'm thinking you're probably looking more forward to the game after the debacle that you saw at my club on Monday. But we will get into it. Obviously, just loosely from a Wolves perspective, because I just want to know. Obviously, I'm assuming you've grown up in and around Wolves. You've been a Wolves fan all your life.
Yeah.
So far, how have you found the season so far with Wolves?
It's been okay. I would say it's possibly even better than we expected, really. Sort of like I alluded to earlier, the whole of the summer and pre-season was just so disjointed and all over the place for Wolves, mainly with Lopetegui leaving so late on. The situation surrounding that really was right at the end of last season, basically. I think it's probably before our final game of the season against Arsenal. Lopetegui was basically told that he wasn't really going to have much money to spend, or if there was money, he was going to have to sell a lot of good players. And it took him a long time to sort of accept that. And then it sort of got towards the start of pre-season before the players were back. And he said, right, okay, I'm happy to crack on. Let's do it. Ruben Neves had already gone for a little bit more than we expected. And then for whatever reason, 2 weeks before the season, Lopetegui still didn't like what was going on and said to the club, look, I'm going to give you a week, but I'm going to leave next week and I want you to find a replacement. So that's what happened. And in the end, Gary O'Neill came in less than a week before the start of the season. And a lot of people, Wolves fans included, were like, right, this is going to be a disastrous season. Like, we're really going to struggle. Gary O'Neill wasn't really the most attractive appointment. And we thought we were going to be down there and struggling. Look, I know there's a long way to go, but we've had an okay start and we've put ourselves in a pretty good position, especially considering some of the poor officiating and refereeing decisions that we've had to go against us so far.
Mate, and we're going to get into that today. And, funny you saying that because it's so funny how things kind of move on with football. The second you mentioned Ruben Neves, I was like, yeah, Ruben Neves, what a player. And he bloody went to the Saudi League. How the hell did you guys let him go? It's madness. But you know what? The one thing I think the similarities between our clubs is the fact that maybe both the managerial signings were quite underwhelming. Because when you look back at Bournemouth and Gary O'Neill, he did have them playing some decent football, to be fair. And under Gary O'Neill, they stayed up. I would go as far as to say, if he didn't come in, he came in at the right time. If he didn't go in at the time that he went in, Bournemouth would have gone down. And since then, I've been watching him. I like the fact that Gary O'Neill has a youth team in London, in South London, called Next Gen. So I kind of respect him for that because he still kind of stays with the grassroots. Then I watched the episode with Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, Monday Night Football, where he's the only manager that I've seen that actually let you see an actual possession, actual tactics. And then we see the tactics play out in the game that you had that week. And he was saying, look, see, I wanted the press and this is why I wanted blah, blah, blah. So he seems like a really down-to-earth guy. Would you make of him now that he's come in? both our managers weren't respected. Should we be putting some respect on Gary O'Neill's name, or do you want time, or does he still need time to cook?
A, a little bit of both, but I think a lot of Wolves fans have sided with him now. Like I said, back in August, everyone, even I said, if you asked any Wolves fan, who do you want to be the next manager of Wolves, Gary O'Neill would not have been the answer. And you could have asked any Premier League fan, who would you want to be the next head coach, and they wouldn't. And that's no disrespect to him. Obviously, he did the job that he did at Bournemouth, and I think you were right. The day that he got appointed at Bournemouth, I think everyone was like, right, I'm putting good money on them to go down. And he did a fantastic job and kept them up. And then he came to Wolves, the opening game at Old Trafford. All of us went into it with zero expectation because we thought, you know what, we're going to get, and you know what, we were the better team. And again, a dodgy penalty decision towards
Unlucky, because you should have won that game, yeah.
I think that took a lot of pressure off because people are, hold on a second, we might be all right. But then there were some people saying, well, Lopetegui's trained all these players up for this game, so maybe it's still Lopetegui at the moment. So it took him a little while to grow into it. And then we went most recently on a 6-match unbeaten run, beating Man City, picking up points against Villa and Newcastle at home as well. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of fans on his side, and he's starting to speak really well in the press. And we know he's had some decisions go against him. So, look, it's still very early days with him, but the signs are that, the signs are encouraging, basically. And like you say, with Ange and Gary O'Neill, I think you've got to let the managers do the talking and let their football do the talking before we start writing them off, really.
Fairs. And big up to a couple of people in the chat. AFC always showing love. Callum Roche in the building. We got Cairo Keem. Big up to you. Enough respect. Big one tonight. Look, I'm always intrigued to hear, because it's easy for me as a Spurs fan to be shaking my bum violently for my club, Tottenham Hotspur. But from a Wolves perspective, what have you made of Spurs' start to the season? What have you made of Orange Postecoglou? Do you know what I mean?
I've liked Postecoglou a lot, and I know it came out only, I say recently, it only came out during the summer that Wolves tried to get him when Bruno Lage went just over a year ago. About this time last year, actually. And obviously it was mid-season with Celtic and he decided not to move. So I liked it a lot. I know it took you guys a long while. And it's always hard for players as well, coming from the Scottish League to the English League, because the Scottish League, rightly or wrongly, is very disrespected. And it's hard for a manager to sort of, and players to step over. But you got to look. I know he's never really managed a club, a league, as elite as the Premier League, but he's won things. Absolutely, he's got a winning mentality. He's won things everywhere he's gone. So, I mean, we always do on our preseason podcast, we always do predictions, and sometimes you go really out there with them. But my one prediction was that Spurs would get top 4 under Postecoglou. That's what I said, and we give each other points at the end of the season. That's what I said, and I think an unbelievable start. I still think on Monday, and I suppose this is his mentality as a manager, I think on Monday, which we'll talk about, if I was him, I would have just parked the bus at 9 men to try and get something out of the game. But again, each to their own. I think that in one way it will frustrate Spurs fans, but in another way, you're thinking, you know what, we've got a manager that just wants to go out there, entertain, win football matches. And Spurs, if you look at the list of managers you've had recently, just have had quite pragmatic, defensive, boring managers, especially under Nuno, Mourinho. Conte was like that at times as well. So it's something different, but the way he's got everyone singing off the same hymn sheet there, as long as you can keep the players fit and not suspended again, which we'll talk about, I think it could be a successful season for you guys.
Cheers for that. And it's always good to get another fan, another team's perspective, because sometimes you can get caught up in your team, and and look, as a Spurs fan, I have to say it's a breath of fresh air. Anyone that's been under, no disrespect, Nuno, Mourinho, Conte, that kind of dusty football where you want to do this low block and then hit people on the counter. Mate, I mean, we went from having like 20% possession to now having like 75% possession. Yeah. So for me, and what I saw from Orange Postecoglou, which I think it's quite timely that we talk about, the last couple of games, is I think I love the man. I didn't give him a sniff at the beginning of the season, but it felt like Tottenham went for, I kind of coined it the other day. It felt like it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Yeah, and I think that's what we did on Monday, mate. I think we went for broke. And the fact is that 9 men Spurs could literally take a full 11 Chelsea to the wire. Let's be real. We could have equalised before they got the third and fourth goal.
Yeah.
Maybe even won the game. I just had to put some respect on him. And that's playing at the likes of Eric Dyer in defence and losing Madison and losing bloody Van der Ven and losing bloody Udogie and losing Romero. I mean, bloody hell, how many people did we want to lose in one game? The only thing I felt, I was just speaking to a mate as, you know, I was coming in, is when I think back on the Chelsea game, and as much as I think it was a valiant performance from the boys, it just didn't have to happen. There's no need for Romero to be so high. I don't know what gets you so hyped up that you want to break someone's bloody legs. And Udogie as well. I feel like we gave the game to Chelsea. They didn't do anything to win that game, but we self-exploded. And that for me is a little bit of the worry that I have. But generally speaking, I've been really impressed by our start. Obviously, the best start we've ever had in Premier League history. It was unfortunate on Monday, but everyone looking at the game would say that the boys gave a fantastic performance. And what I'm hoping for, and what every Spurs fan is waiting with bated breath, is to see what the injury situation is. We know Van der Ven might be out, but we're hearing today that he might not be needing surgery, which is a positive in my opinion. Obviously, he won't be available for the game this weekend. But yeah, I'm really excited. But on the contrary, with Wolves, the one thing I will say, as much as I found this season pretty exciting, and I think it's the toughest season on record, I think it's got to be the worst season for officiating that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And it's good that I've got you here, Dave, because you can bloody confirm this. But bloody hell, what the hell is going on? Because you guys should be a lot higher. I reckon you guys would be bloody top 8, top 7 if the decisions had just been done fairly, right?
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
We would be, of course, games can vary, but a couple of the decisions, like the United game, which I mentioned earlier, the game last weekend was right at the death, you know. So if the actual things went our way, we could be, I think we would be 8th with the right amount of points. So I don't know. Obviously, the United one's the main one when Onana clatters into Kalajdzic and Craig Dawson right at the death. We've battered them all game, and obviously they won the luck, so we get absolutely nothing. And then Howard Webb's there and apologises to Gary O'Neill straight away and says it should have been a penalty. Then Luton away, we went down to 10 men, which that was a frustrating one, the red card, but I think I can understand why that was given. Again, there's a bit of a grey area about the whole kicking out thing at the moment. You know, we saw it with Rashford yesterday, and you know, or not kicking out, but you know what I mean, like the
well, Romero did it on Monday as well with the
kicking out.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. In my opinion, the Bellegarde one when he got sent off against Luton was very similar to the Romero one, because what happened was Tom Lockyer of Luton almost, I don't know if you watch wrestling, almost got him in a figure 4 lock. And to get out, Bellegarde's trying to crawl out and like kicks out to try and get out of it, and the ref stops the play and sends him off straight away. Doesn't even go to VAR, just sends him off. That's it. And then in the same game, we have one where João Gomez blocks a cross and it bounces up off his foot onto his arm, and they give a penalty for that, and that gets given. And obviously they score and we draw the game. And then the last two have been the last 2 weekends. Newcastle at 1-1, where the penalty's given, where Hwang doesn't even touch the guy. I think he kicks the ball onto the guy's leg and he goes flying. And then the weekend just gone, 99th minute, where Fabio Silva gets penalised for the almost deja vu, the exact same thing. But the annoying thing is, I mean, the last 2 weekends, I can understand why the referee's given the decision, because it happened so quick right in front of him. Anthony Taylor at the Newcastle took a while to think about it, but then you've got VAR, who's got 1,000,001 angles. He's got an assistant VAR who's got the same angles. How they can still say, yes, that's right, without even telling Anthony Taylor to go to the monitor. But then Rob Jones on Saturday blew straight away, and the exact same thing. But the funny thing is, and Spurs would have had it with decisions as well. They have, during the week, they have an independent panel which review these decisions to say, yes, they've got it right, or no, they've got it wrong. There's 5 people. Last week against Newcastle, all 5 of them said it was the wrong decision. It should have been overturned as and not a penalty.
Yeah.
The same 5 people this week have said Rob Jones made the wrong decision and that should have been overturned and shouldn't have given a penalty. The Newcastle game's hard because it was end of the first half, so there's still a long time
Yeah,
Wolves had a lot of momentum, still a long time. But the Sheffield United game, 99th minute, we have a free kick that ball at the pitch. He blows the final whistle and we get a point.
yeah.
And I know it won't come to it, but that point could be the difference between us staying in the Premier League or going down. It's ridiculous, really, at the minute. But
No, yeah,
the issue is, as well, that they're both they're so arrogant as well, these referees at the moment. Like I've heard from people, both stories within the club, the Anthony Taylor situation, where people from the club have approached him and said, what was the conversation between you and VAR? And he won't even have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And then it's the sporting director that I know of, and he swore at the referee, and now he's got a stadium ban for the Spurs game and a fine. And then Rob Jones on Saturday says to Gary O'Neill, yes, it's a penalty. I don't want to talk to you. It's about a penalty. Then on social media, you see Gary Lineker and everyone saying, I can't believe they've given that as a penalty. So Gary O'Neill goes into Rob Jones and says, well, you're in the minority here. Look at all these people. And Rob Jones says, is this a popularity contest or what? So, mate, you got the wrong decision. Just own it. Just own it. Yeah. And they'll make mistakes. You'll never, because VAR is still subjective, you'll never have a game which is 100% correct. But it's the fact that they can't just get it into their heads that I've effed up. Let's carry on, and I apologise for it.
And it's a big F up. Do you know what I mean? I totally agree with you, because for me, it's not just effing up. This is it's almost, I would go as far as to say, and some people might say I'm overreacting. It is a bit of a life and death situation in the sense that
so much money
based
in it
on
as well,
these
man.
points, Gary O'Neill loses 3 or 4, 5 or 6 matches in a row, and you get itchy chair. The chairmans don't. They just see the result. You've almost got to be a good manager and lucky at the same time with decisions, because you can lose in the way that Gary O'Neill's just lost, and that's still a loss against you. And all they do is say, "Yeah, sorry, we made a mistake." Is that it? We've lost points. We've lost money. We've lost sponsorship. We've lost a whole heap of things, and all you're just going to do is say, "Yeah, we made a wrong decision," and crack on and move on. I think there's got to be some sort of sanction on referees. I don't know if it comes out so blatantly obvious, then there needs to be a deduction in their wages, or there needs to be some sort of, I don't want to say shaming, because we don't need to shame refs, but they also got to feel the pinch, because football, there's so much money involved, so much at stake. Just to be a flipper, this is not Sunday league grassroots stuff. This is, like you said, there's millions if Wolves don't. If Wolves stay up, do you know the amount of millions they saved are just staying up? Do you know what I mean, in the Prem? And surely we got to look into that more deeply, because it just seems like this season they've just let the standards just drop. And I actually would go as far as to say I preferred things like Postecoglou said this week without VAR. If the referee's right, is right. If he's wrong. I can kind of take that. But with all the tech involved, it is a bit of pill to swallow, to be honest with you. And I feel like you've taken it quite well.
I think the frustrating thing is that the referees have now got a little bit too lazy and can rely on VAR. Like if they think that's a penalty, and you go, oh, they're not 100% sure, they'll blow the whistle and they'll be like, well, VAR can overturn it. But then the VAR, it's too like the margins are too grey. Yeah. Like you've got 2 blokes in the VAR hub that have got one of their mates refereeing the game. So they're sort of backing their mate up as well. Whereas in reality, what they should do is like, right, we're going to have a look at that. It might be after about 30 seconds, it might be worth you coming to the monitor so we can actually have a conversation with why you've given it and if you're right or wrong, rather than him standing on the pitch for 3 minutes whilst 2 other blokes are looking at it and haven't watched it in real time. So it's frustrating, but I don't know. We've had it a lot, and obviously Arteta kicked off about it, last week. But I think Wolves have had it a hell of a lot worse, and other teams have had it a hell of a lot worse than Arsenal have. But because the Arsenal one, I can get his frustration, but there's no black and white in that really. The ball, we'll never know if it was in or out. The foul, some refs will give it, some refs won't. So you can see why that goal stood. But then with the other 2, the Wolves ones, both of those just aren't penalties, full stop. Yeah, so straight. I don't know. I'm hoping that we've sort of shouted loud enough now that the referees will, get a kick up the backside and start refereeing the games properly now.
No, respect to you, and big up to everyone in the chat here today. AFC always, Cairo, Keem, all the big guns who always showing love and support. Callum, big up to you. Make sure you smash them like buttons. I don't even like saying that, but sometimes you just got to do it. You know, AFC always. I think we'll answer this question before we move on. If you could eliminate one thing from football, what would it be? Dave, that's to you, and then I'll answer next.
I think VAR is the obvious answer, but I'm not completely against the idea of VAR. I think it's just the people running it are the issue really at the moment, or the people operating it. So I'm not against the idea of it because I think it does, or it can make the game. It's got the potential to make the game a lot fairer. I don't know really. I am happy with football, but it is just the officials really. I think that's the one thing I'd change: the officiating and the quality of the officials, if possible. And I don't know whether it will be in regards that we've got to start going abroad to get referees. Yeah. But even you've got someone like Jared Gillett, who was the top referee in Australia. He's come over and he's absolutely awful in the Premier League as well. So I don't know what they can do really.
Yeah, no, respect to that. And AFC always is coming. He said he will remove racism.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. Stuff like that as well, yeah. Racism, homophobia, yeah, none of that.
All of that stuff, we'll take that all out. Yeah, so no, get your, hear that and feel that as well. Look, I want to kind of delve in more into Wolves. So obviously, and into the game this weekend. And one of the questions I want... So first and foremost, I'm a big fan of Pedro Neto, man. What a player. I think, for me... I think Tottenham need to go out and get him, to be honest. In fact, Ruben Neves, Neto, I feel like, you guys made some good signings. I haven't seen Podence much this season. Hwang is going to be meeting his best friend in Heung-min Son, or his bloody hero, should I be saying, in Son this weekend. So I want to find out from you, who's your favourite Spurs player at the moment? Mine being Pedro Neto. And then I want to move swiftly on from there into what do you think is your weak area? Where is the weakness lie in your squad at the moment in terms of your team and how you set up? But yeah, your favourite Spurs player at the moment.
Spurs player?
So you expected me to say Wolves? I won't give you that.
I like Son a lot. I think Son's a fantastic player because I remember... I don't even know what show. Maybe it was on BT Sport, or it may have been before even that, when they used to show the Bundesliga highlights, and I used to watch Son before he moved to Spurs. And I remember back in the day when they signed him, I was like really excited about that signing to see him in the Premier League. But he's just been almost like ever present, even where with Harry Kane doing his thing, Son was always, getting the assists and getting the goals as well. And I'm happy to see him step up this season and scoring the goals as well, to be fair as well. So, yeah, I think Son's a great player. Maddison's really kicked on as well. I'm never 100% sure about Maddison. I wish, we played him when he was at Norwich in the Championship, and we really should have probably taken a punt on him. But there were times that I watched him at Leicester, and I just felt he wasn't as good as I thought people made out. But this year, he's really kicked on at Spurs and just at his creative best still at the moment. So, I mean, I hope he's out for this weekend's game, but I think he'll, kick on and still carry on doing his thing. But yeah, for me, it's got to be Son, I'd say.
No, fairs. Hey, look, Spurs fans are waiting with bated breath. Big up my fellow Spurs supporter. Callum Roach actually makes a joke. He says, what would he get rid of in football? And he's put Arsenal. Love it, Callum. My sentiments entirely will get rid of the scum in the Gooners. So, Dave, weaknesses. Because every club has their weaknesses. Where do the weaknesses lie in that Wolves squad? Gary O'Neill likes to play football. That's the thing. At least you're not having to do the dusty Nuno system. You're actually having a crack, and having a crack has probably fed you well, especially against the bigger teams. But where's the weakness? Where the weakness lie in your 11?
I think defensively we can look, a little bit shaky at times, and I think it's mainly. I mean, after we'd played Luton and dropped points there, and we'd lost to Ipswich in the cup, there was a lot of discontent and people not happy with Gary O'Neill and so on. And when City were coming to Molineux that weekend after, everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And he switched to a back five, which no one really expected. And obviously we went and it wasn't even a negative performance. We just did a job, went there to counter-attack City, and that won us the game. And he stuck with that system ever since. And us being at home against Spurs on Saturday, I think he'll play that same system. I think where Spurs will probably get at us is by running out that back five, because Semedo, his defensive numbers are good, but can sometimes be caught out of position.
And he's right back in his Semedo, yeah?
Yeah. So I like Semedo. Again, I think he gets a lot of disrespect, but I think he's a good player defensively, one-on-one defensively. You know, he's good. Where he can get caught out, which I've seen a couple of times last season and even this season, where there'd be a ball crossed quite deep and he gets beaten in the air quite easily, or he's almost not aware of a man running in behind him as well.
Yeah.
The back three have been pretty solid as well, Totti, Dawson and Kilman, but there have been stages where almost their shape and defensively they're defending as if they're in a back four, or one or two of them are defending like they're in a back three and the other one's defending like they're in a back four, so the shape's just not quite right.
Yeah.
So that's where players like Son can try and pick up those pockets of space in between those sort of players. But the midfield battle will be a good one. I think that's what Wolves rely on a lot. If they're going to win football matches, it's that midfield battle. And with Mario Lemina, I think will play for sure. But then there's the other
He's doing
midfielder.
well, Lemina.
Yeah, I think he's been really good since he's joined the club. And it's the other midfielder really that's probably up in the air at the moment. We've got a young Brazilian lad, João Gomes, who's really a really good player, but he hasn't started the last couple of games.
Yeah.
We've got a taller, younger midfielder, Boubacar Traoré, who again is a bit of a box-to-box player, but really physical. Or he's got Tommy Doyle. He started Tommy Doyle last weekend against Sheffield United. I don't think it quite worked. So I think a battle like this in the midfield, it's probably going to be João Gomes or Boubacar. But I think that's where the game's won and lost for Wolves. And then it depends on how the front three are set up and how the front three do. Because without Neto, who's obviously injured at the moment, he was such a big part of us driving forward and causing problems. And I think it would have been quite exciting to see him against possibly a makeshift back four for Spurs. So I think it'll be Cunha and Hwang definitely, but I'm not 100% sure who the third forward will be on Saturday.
And Cunha, what is his position? Because I've liked, from what I've seen of him, he just seems to be a dribbler, mate. He just wants to take on everybody and just dribble past the whole bloody team. Is he a number 10 or what position is he?
So at the start of the season, he sort of played as a number 10, as like an attacking midfielder. But then when we switched to the 5, he's been playing as like a number 9, almost like a false 9, really, and allowing Hwang and Neto to pick up some nice spaces. But he actually played off the wing on Saturday. But I think he'll return to the central striker on Saturday. It's almost a little bit like Son's role and qualities, really. A player that's really strong on the ball, can run at players, skillful, and that's what Cunha's like. The only thing with Cunha is that we just need to start seeing some more goal contributions from him. Yeah. He scored a couple of weeks ago, but I've just got a fear. Just a little part of me's got a fear that he'll almost turn out to be an Adama Traoré, where he's almost got everything apart from putting the ball in the right area or putting the ball in the back of the net. But I think he'll play centrally, and it'll be again another player that I'm excited to see running at the Spurs back line.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. When I was watching him last weekend, it did send shivers down my spine. But then I was slightly confident then because we did have Romero and Van de Ven in the side who I felt could do a job. But now it all looks different. I think for me, Tottenham's weakness is obviously the fact that we don't have our main defenders. I think Romero and Van de Ven have been arguably up there with the best central centre-back pairing in the league. I mean, they've taken us back to the days of the Tongan and Toby Alderweireld. It's that good. And Van de Ven pulling up like that against Chelsea, you just think, bloody hell. And then Romero getting a free match ban, you just think, bloody hell. And we don't have any centre-backs on the bench. So we know for a fact that Eric Dyer will be playing on the weekend. And Eric Dyer that's probably my only criticism of Postecoglou is Eric Dyer can't run. And if you look at the Chelsea goals that they ended up scoring on Dyer's side because he's not quick. I'm not blaming him, but I'm hoping we don't do a high line against Wolves with Eric Dyer in defence. We've got a choice. We started off with Emerson Royale in centre-back in the game against Chelsea. Even Højbjerg dropped in and did a job at the back. For me, I would go with Højbjerg and probably Eric Dyer. But Ben Davies can play left centre-back. He's done it before. He's done it for Wales in the back three with Eric Dyer. But we would be vulnerable at the back. We've got a young lad that we just bought from Blackburn who could also play centre-back. I would rather see him. I think it's an opportunity. Why not? Give him a shot. But look, Tottenham's going to be weak at the back. The only thing that I see happening is that every game we've played so far this season, we've had more ball possession. And I think the way to beat Wolves is if Maddison plays. If Maddison plays, we still got Basuma, we still got Pape Sarr, Bentancur's back fit. Brennan Johnson had to come off pretty much straight away after the debacle on Monday. So we've got Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski, Son. That midfield is good, man. And it will be very, very difficult, even at your gaff, to get the ball off those players. Do you know what I mean? We still got Porro. Vicario, I think, is arguably up there with Alisson in terms of... He's not quite Alisson. Alisson's the best keeper in the league, but I think you've got to say...
Got a good start to the season.
Yeah. So for me, no Udogie, no Romero, no Van de Ven. It's a bloody disaster. That is obviously the weakness. And... You know, Gary O'Neill must be thanking the gods, do you know what I mean, for he's like this weekend, lucky stars, because that is, but I saw 9 men without those players, without Madders, without Brennan Johnson, go toe-to-toe with a Chelsea team on Monday. So, yeah, I think where Tottenham's strengths are is our attack and our midfield. I don't think... People don't put respect on Pape Sarr, but I think Pape Sarr, what a player. People talk about Basuma, people talk about Madders, but Pape Sarr is Tottenham's Declan Rice. He is the bloody vacuum cleaner, the Hoover, hoovering up everything in that bloody midfield, and that kid doesn't get tired. And I think that's where the game could be won for Spurs. And then obviously, I mean, the fact that you play 5 at the back just makes me feel like you set up for defense, really, which favors Spurs. And if you don't have the ball, how do you score is the question, you know? And it's probably going to invite Spurs to play that high line. But I do think, look, even if we had a full team, it was going to be a tight game. Tottenham Wolves is always tight. I remember the game at the Tottenham Stadium where bloody Matt Doherty bloody scores the winner. Bloody loses. And we'll talk about Matt Doherty in a bit. So, yeah, that's where I see Tottenham's weakness. Our back three is going to be pretty weak. We don't know how they're going to set up. I think it's got to be Højbjerg. It's going to probably be Ben Davis, Emerson Royal left back, Eric Dyer, Porro, but we can't play a high line. We cannot play a high line. If we do, mate, you guys could win 4-5, 4-5-1 or 2, mate. It could be a disaster. But yeah, but you kind of alluded to it. Where do you think your strengths are then? Where would you think you're going to kill Tottenham?
It's on the counter attack, I think, really. And that's how, like, when you're saying possibly a high line, possibly a lot of the ball. I don't think Wolves will mind Spurs having a lot of the ball, but it's just how when we get the ball, what can we do and what damage can we do? Like with Hwang and Cunha. It's a shame Neto's not playing because I think we would just stick Neto on the last man, and he's so hard to get off the ball. Like he's bullied Villa defensively. City, he gave an absolute nightmare as well. So, he had been so good.
What's he worth? You reckon? Sorry to cut you there, but what do you reckon he's worth? Right. How much would you sell him? Do you reckon? 60 mil?
I think there's a conversation to be had at 60 mil. I don't think he'll go in January. Only purely from my point of view, I think that he won't want to move mid-season. But at the same time, if I was in another club's shoes, I don't think Pedro Neto has shown enough yet to pay that sort of money. And I only say that because we all know he's a talented footballer, but he's never had a full season in the Premier League at this level. Yes. Because every time he does, he gets injured. We've had this conversation for 3 years where he's our best player. He's been our best player in pre-season for 3 years, and then he'll get an injury. 1 year he's out for the whole season. The next year, which was last season, unbelievable pre-season. Arsenal wanted him, and then he gets injured before the transfer window closes, and then the same now as well. So I don't think anyone will take the punt on him, but I think if he carries on with a decent level of form and gets himself, 15 plus assists or whatever, I think 60 million, there's a conversation to be had in the summer.
No, fair. I mean, I like him. I mean, what's the point? FC's just said the new PR says there's nobody there for Jan. But I think if Tottenham are in and around the top 3, come January, then it's the likes of Neto that we need to be going for. Because I like him. I think he's fantastic. And the way he bullied City. Could you imagine Neto, Son and Madders on the same pitch? It'd be a royal disaster. But yeah, no, fairs. So yeah, you don't mind Spurs having the ball. You quite
No,
happy.
I think that's what I mean. We saw against. I mean, you look at the stats for that game against City, and they were just all. To be fair though, it's a weird one. On paper, it looked like City absolutely wiped the floor with us, and obviously, I think we only had one shot on target, and we beat them 2-1 because the one was an own goal.
Yeah.
But in terms of actual clear-cut opportunities for them, they created very little, and their goal was from a set piece as well. The only time I could remember them getting in behind was someone had clipped a ball through for Nunes in behind, and I think that Maddison's possibly got the quality to do that. Find that pass. But they just pinned Craig Dawson on Haaland, and Haaland just couldn't do anything. It's the worst I've seen Haaland play, genuinely.
Yeah.
So that Wolves won't mind. It's just how we the transition for us to get the ball up the pitch. And I think if Cunha plays, he'll be the man we will try and get on the ball to drive forward because he's quick. But he just glides past players. And I think if Dyer or whoever picks up an early booking, it could be a long afternoon for Spurs. And Hwang as well, who's just on the ball, is really, really solid.
He's just on it, isn't he? He's just on it, man. He's a mini.
But yeah, I mean, he was another one. Like, he really struggled the last couple of years, and like a lot of Wolves fans just didn't have a lot of time for him. But this year, man, in and around the box, he's deadly. And the other forward's going to be a big one for me because last week they played Kalajdzic, who's 6'8" striker.
6'8".
Yeah. And it didn't really work against Sheffield United because you have a lot of the ball. He wasn't really getting in the box. Because if you got someone of that height, you just want to be whipping the ball into the air, and we weren't doing that. But against Spurs, I think because we'll want to play a lot quicker and faster, there's a French guy, Jean-Ric Bellegarde, who's a really good dribbler as well that might play.
Yeah.
Or even as a real out there shout. I don't think it'll happen, but possibly even Fabio Silva because he's a kid low, rock bottom on confidence, but he can move. He works hard. So Gary O'Neill could surprise a lot of people and start him. But if it was me, I think it'll be Cunha, Hwang, and Bellegarde as our front three anyway.
Fairs. And they're going to give us a rough time, mate, to be honest, because, as Hair Today has kind of quoted, Postcog has said, for better or for worse, he's bloody playing the eye line. So we know that, your team will be licking their lips. For me, I think I described it earlier in the week that Maddison and Son is almost like watching Messi. You know what he's going to do, but there's nothing you can do about it. Just stop it. And you saw it, in the first 10, 15 minutes on Monday. Chelsea knew what they were going to do, but they just couldn't stop it. And if Madders is fit, I mean, we heard that he took him off as a precaution. We're down to bloody 10 men at that point anyway. Then I just don't see. I mean, I think there is a shout, and I hope you're not going to laugh, but I do think, Craig Dawson's underrated and why he's not in the England squad, given that we are playing the likes of Eric Dyer and Maguire in the England team. Then people like Lewis Dunk and Craig Dawson, mate, they deserve a sniff, in my opinion. But I do think Madders has proved so far this season, him and Son, almost like a Kane-Son partnership, that they've just got that edge to find those kind of little spaces, those little pockets. The fact that you're playing 5 at the back, counter-attacking football, I guess that's what we want anyway. We would prefer that. That's more our comfort zone. My issue is, can we break you down? I'm not too worried about you attacking us too much, but can Spurs break down a 5-man defense? I haven't seen it. We struggled against Luton, to be fair, and Tottenham notoriously over the years struggle against teams that do a bit of a low block. And so if you put a low block on Spurs, with the fact that we've got no Romero, no Van der Ven, Romero is just not a tough tackling defender. He can actually thread some balls. We don't have that now with the Dyer, and we might try the young lad Phillips in defense. So yeah, it's going to be a toughie. I'm not going to lie to you. We will see. But if we do it, then it will be Spurs' place. Kulusevski, Son, Brennan Johnson, Basu, Marsar. Yeah, I think if we hold on to the ball, we might just edge it. But yeah, I'm not sure. The attack, I would go Madders and Son. No one's been able to stop them so far, and that's probably where our strengths are. Mate, given all of that in mind, given what what you've seen of your club, what do you think is going to happen on Saturday?
I think it will be a tight game. I think, like you said, the games between both Wolves and Spurs have been tight games. I think the last game we beat you at Molineux, which was a tight match. I think Fraser Forster played in goal that game for you guys. Made a couple of stops and
He's rubbish.
yeah, and then Adama scored a nice goal. But I think the games, are always tight games. But I think the one thing Wolves have scored in every game, bar the opening game against United.
Yes.
But at the same time, we've seen a lot of goals. So I think both teams will score, no doubt about it. So in sort of in my mind, I am thinking like a 1-1 draw, but I think there'll only be a goal in it either way if a team is to win. I think Wolves can't be complacent. I think they can't at 2:00, or not even 2:00, at 11:30 when the teams come out. We can't look at the teams and think, flipping it, yes, Maddison's missing, Van der Ven's missing, this player's missing. Right, we're going to do it. We can't think like that because Postecoglou is that clever and that good of a coach and manager that he would have known by Tuesday morning who he'll have a good idea who's going to be available, and he'll have all that week to prepare for it. So it'll be a very tough game, and if Spurs could keep it up the other end of the pitch, their defense won't have much to worry about because they've got the quality with Son and Maddison and whatever. But if it is one of those days for Spurs and the Wolves attack and midfield is on it, and the wing backs who can contribute a lot, Wolves have got a chance in this game. But I think I think a lot of Wolves fans will take a point at the moment anyway. But I think if the team does go on to win the game, I think it'll only be by a goal either way. So probably a 1-1 or 2-1 either way.
Yeah. Hair to there says he expects this to be Wolves versus Newcastle.
Yeah.
That's the end-to-end thriller. Yeah, and I think it has all the hallmarks for that, all the makings. I mean, when you said 1-1, I kind of nodded and I wanted to kind of agree.
Yeah.
And then I said, let me not be so stubborn. I think 1-0 would probably be about right. I can see it. Because like you said, every game, Tottenham Wolves is a bloody disaster. To be honest, even if we had a full squad, I'd still be saying 1-0 with all of our players on deck. But I think Saturday's game is bigger than what a lot of, I think is a lot bigger now, given what happened on Monday. And I tell you why. Postecoglou's been battling with, not him, but almost like an imposter syndrome where people just are not giving this guy the respect. And I think he's a lot better. I mean, it's easy for people to say, but I just need to say it. Postecoglou is a lot better than what people are giving him credit for. That's the first thing. Spurs starting 11 is a lot better than what people are giving it credit for. And this Saturday is an opportunity for Postecoglou. I said on Monday after the game that I think Spurs have turned the corner, despite the fact that we lost 4-1, because it was the manner of the defeat. Tottenham usually with 10 men can't even beat Luton. They can't beat any. They wouldn't even be able to bloody beat Colchester. It's that poor. You know what I mean? It's that rubbish. But here, we beat Luton 1-0, and you could see how good a result that was with what they did to Liverpool on the weekend, but also going toe-to-toe with Chelsea. Now, if my theory is correct, and Tottenham have turned the corner, then I expect Spurs to win 1-0 or 2-1 this weekend. If we lose, then it means that it was a little bit like a honeymoon period, isn't it? Where everything was rosy and stuff. But actually, the truth is, when you look behind the veil, there was nothing there. Do you know what I mean? It was just hot air, just bluster. And so that's why I think this Saturday's game is so important for Postecoglou, because if we're able to get a result against yourselves, then it means there's enough in that squad. Because it's easy on the surface to look at that Tottenham squad and say we've got no depth. But we had Bentancur on the bench. We had Højbjerg on the bench. These are players you can easily start. If we can get a result, I think it's going to be 1-0. And for me, I would take 1-0. 1-0 at Molineux is a respectable result. But if we're able to do a little bit more and get the win, then I would boldly say to you, Dave, and I don't know if you agree, that Tottenham should be considered as title contenders.
I think so as well. I mean, if they can keep up this, I mean, if he can go, I think there'll be a lot of praise for him if he can comfortably beat Wolves on Saturday. With this situation surrounding this squad, with the big players missing, or with suspension or injury. The big test, I think, for him will be come December because the amount of fixtures he can't afford, or depending on the seriousness of some injuries like Van der Ven's and so on, he needs to get by until Christmas, and that's why I don't know a lot about the young lad, Phillips, centre half, but
he's meant to
if
be
he,
really good. Yeah.
You're really not going to know, and even as fans, you're not going to know how good he is until you chuck him into a first team game. So that's why I'd be intrigued to see if he does start on Saturday. He might kick on, have a great game, and Postecoglou's all of a sudden got another option that he can rely on a lot more. You don't know. You see it a lot with players. So December's the big one for me. If he can get through, by the middle of December up till Christmas, and they're still sort of second, third within touching distance of top spot, then I think everyone's got every right to say they can be title contenders. Yeah. And I know someone had commented, I'd seen earlier on as well, I think David Ornstein had said about the lack of funds, but I think that's quite clever from the club, because if Tottenham said, yeah, we've got loads of money to spend in January, the asking price of everyone just starts to go up then. So I think there will be money to spend. I understand, obviously, they would have spent the Kane money almost in advance, but I think when a manager's doing as well as Postecoglou's done so far, and if he can keep it up, there will be money to spend, and there'll be areas, I think mainly the defence, for Spurs to improve and hopefully kick on this season. I think the big advantage for you guys is, obviously, I'll say advantage, but there's no Europe this season. So the main focus is on the league, and hopefully for your sake, a nice little FA Cup run as well. But that could be a big bonus for Spurs going into the latter stages of the season anyway.
No, fairs. No, fairs for that. And from me, again, to you, with what you've known and what you've seen so far, what would success look like for Wolves this season?
It sounds like quite...
I'm throwing all these hammers at you tonight, but
no.
It needs to be answered.
It sounds quite narrow-minded, but I think just keeping out of just not at all getting dragged into the relegation battle like we were under sort of Bruno Lage got us in the mess, and Lopetegui sort of got us out of it. Not getting dragged into that again, and just having, there'll be some games, like possibly even, a couple of weeks ago against City, where we finished the weekend not expecting anything, and then we get 3 points and we're ecstatic. And then there'll be other weekends like last weekend where we get done over by a referee decision and lose to Sheffield United, who hadn't won a game all season. So I think this season is going to be a lot of that for Wolves, where, we pick up results that we're really happy with and we beat teams that we should be beating. But then there'll be other weekends where there's results where we should have really done better. So I think if we can stay in and around that mid-table spot, I think, considering what I said earlier about the amount of fans that wrote off Wolves and the amount of people that had Wolves in their bottom three in their predictions, I think we'll be happy. If we can have a little cup run, obviously that'd be fantastic. But I think that everyone outside the top six, I think every team actually wants a cup run normally. But for us, it's almost a dream to do quite well. And you never know. I think you get quite fortunate. You get the Cities, the Spurs, the Liverpools, Uniteds drawing against each other in the FA Cup. There's every chance for teams like Wolves to do quite well in the competition. But we always want to go. We've got nightmares of Nuno got us to the FA Cup semi-final and we chucked it away against Watford at Wembley, and we still all got nightmares of that. So maybe one day we'll go one further. But yeah, anywhere sort of in and around mid-table, just keep ourselves out of the relegation battle, and I think we'll be sound. But I think there's definitely three worse teams than Wolves this season anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, I was even surprised you saying that, because from what I've seen, I've been, like I said, I think big up to Gary O'Neill. I think he did a sterling job at Bournemouth. I think he's doing a sterling job. And like you rightly said, had the right decisions gone your way, i.e. the last two penalty decisions, then, I mean, you guys would be 8th in the table. And I kind of look at Wolves. People fear Wolves, You might not think it as a Wolves fan, but, a good friend of mine in the chat, The Assembled, who I've never bloody met, he's going to be the first to point it out. Oi, everyone, Wolves are going to be a bigger problem after the Chelsea game. I would have felt that, whether it was before or after. I kind of see... So, look, I think there's a top 7 in the Prem. I think we can't ignore Newcastle. Even though they haven't spent the funds, Newcastle on their day can shred any team. Then I think there's a next kind of league that's kind of brewing between, the Brighton. Villa fans won't like me for saying this and putting him in that bracket, but I would say Villa.
It's true though, yeah.
I would say yourselves and Fulham. In that kind of middle bracket-ish, dodgy teams. No one really wants to play them. As much as you beat Man City, when you speak to most fans, most people weren't really surprised.
Yeah.
Shockingly, we weren't surprised because your team is rated. And I think, you got to be pushing on for top 8 if you can. Top 8, top 9. Definitely. It's going to be tough. You've got the Brightons of this world. You've got Aston Villa, who are doing well. You've got Fulham, who are going to be in and around it. I respect Fulham as well. I think they're a decent outfit. But I think you guys could do it, and why not? If a couple of decisions go your way, you add in Jan, I can see who's going to stop Wolves. People are telling me these are the dodgy games. People are not even talking about the top 6 playing each other. We're talking about, let's see what you do against Newcastle. Let's see what you do against Villa. Let's see what you do against Brighton and Wolves. That's the topic of conversation with most of the big 6 or the big 7. So I really think you guys can do. I think a good season for you is, mate. It's not implausible, mate. You could get top 7, top 8, definitely.
I think it would need I think it's mad because you actually look at on paper our results. We got smashed. Brighton beat us quite comfortably at Molineux, but it was almost a little bit like that Chelsea game you guys had, where we were in that. We were 1-0 down in that game, and we had 2 clear opportunities right before half time, which we should have put away. And we go into half time 1-0 down, where we could have been at 1-1 or 2-1 up. Yeah. And then we have a lapse of concentration for 5 minutes at the start of the second half, where they score 3 goals and just kill the game off. And they're 4-0 or 4 shots, they're 4-0 up. You're like, flipping heck, can we get a goal in the end? Liverpool bossed them off the pitch for 45 minutes, 1-0 up. Same sort of thing, where we just 2 stupid mistakes and end up throwing away the game. And I think that they were sort of Gary O'Neill's early days, and I think you can sort of see him trying to iron out those errors. So I think you're right. I think, we can, especially at Molineux. I think at Molineux, we can really compete with teams. And that's why I think if this fixture was at the Spurs stadium this weekend, I probably wouldn't be as confident. But I think being at Molineux, our form has been, fantastic. So I'm really excited. I think our last 3 home games, beat City, drew to Villa and drew to Newcastle, 3 teams that are in European competition. So, in decent form.
Mate, it's respectable, mate. I think if Spurs or any of the big 6 could walk away and say beat City, drew with Newcastle, drew with Aston Villa, you would be saying that's European contenders. Let's just be real. So, look, Wolves are there to be fair. They're there to be respected. Tottenham Hotspur, we bloody respect your club. Finally, look, last couple minutes, I needed to do this because I wanted to know, and I know you know. So first and foremost, why the hell have you brought back that Doherty? And the other thing is, what was all that about with Bowley over the summer? Because he's ended up at bloody Nottingham Forest, and I can't quite understand why you would leave Wolves for Forest. You know what I'm saying? Like honestly, what's going on in that? So, can you give an explanation real quick?
Well, there's loads of different situation. Obviously, when Wolves came into the Premier League, a big influence. Like I think, what's the point put in the chat there about the Portuguese connection, and Jorge Mendes was obviously a big part of that. That's how we were able to get Ruben Neves and Diogo Jota in the Championship at the time. Even Bolly, who was playing for Porto in the Champions League, coming to the Championship as well. And sort of Wolves have just over the last couple of years almost tried to drift away from it a little bit, because obviously we've got top players that are under that agency, like Neto, like Neves was. But we're trying to sort of drift away from it because we've been stung too many times. We signed Gonzalo Guedes last season for 35 million, and after 6 months he was loaned out because he just didn't kick on. Yeah. So we've got a new sporting director. He's sort of put all of that into his own hands now, and almost anyone that doesn't want to be at this football club is trying to move on. So Pedence was moved on in the summer because he just kept kicking up a fuss. So he's at Olympiacos on loan, likely to leave. Yeah. So that was quite a late move. Bolly was actually last season as well, but Bolly was one where it's actually we played Newcastle at home last season, and Bruno Lage had named him in the squad, and he didn't turn up to Molineux. So Bruno Lage says, right, yeah, you go in. So Wolves fans are a little bit frustrated with that because it's a little bit disrespectful towards the club, really. You know, when it's almost like refusing to play, really. So Bolly was moved on, and he wasn't really first choice at the time, though, to be fair. So he was moved on and obviously went to Forest. Yeah, Matt Doherty's an interesting one. So
he did absolutely bugger all at Spurs.
Yeah.
I mean, he would often rip us up. You know, he would rip Tottenham in Wolves versus Spurs matches. So I actually was one of the ones vouching for him, saying, look, Matt Doherty used to tear us apart. Get him in. And he was an absolute disaster. What the hell was that? You know what I mean?
So I think he goes down almost as one of those system players. Under Nuno and his system, he was phenomenal at Wolves. And you've seen it so many times over the years where, you know, when with Leicester, I know a couple of players like Mahrez and Kante left and kicked on, but there were some players like Drinkwater and so on just didn't work for whatever reason. So I think Matt Doherty was one of those and did really well at Wolves. And in terms of defensively, wasn't great, but I think almost at times you'd have the ball on the opposite wing, whipped into the air, and someone heads it in. It's like, who's just scored that? Matt Doherty. Why is he in the penalty area? But defensively, and his work rate was a little bit off. So I was surprised to see when we were linked with him. Probably a good 90% of Wolves fans thought it wasn't a good idea. If I'm honest, I wasn't against it because I think if I knew he was coming in as a backup, which we weren't 100% sure at the time, but if I knew he was coming in as backup, I thought, you know, it's a good experienced player, knows the club quite well. It's not a bad option. And that's exactly what he's been so far, mate, to be honest. He's played in the cup twice, played one game because Semedo was suspended or injured, and that's it really. So he's done what he's needed to do, really. I think he expected to possibly come in and be a first teamer, but you know, a starter, but that's obviously not the case. And he still doesn't look fit enough to me, to be honest. He looked really slow the other week against Sheffield, against Bournemouth. So Semedo, I don't think has got anything to worry about. But in terms of backup, I don't think it's the worst option anyway.
Yeah, no fairs. So no, Dave, no fairs. Look, great insights. Thank you so much for
my pleasure, man.
For coming through. It's gonna be a cracking game this weekend. Obviously, I hope my club does something on the weekend and can win. Obviously, you're rooting for your club. I would love us if you had the opportunity. I don't even mind if we go in your shows or your channel as well. But look, please, Dave, shout out your channel because we've got the good thing about this channel is that we've got lots of other fans. You know what I mean? So it's good, you know. And you gave some really wonderful insights tonight. But it would be good to do a reaction even for 15 minutes, mate. If Spurs have lost, just be gentle with me. Do you know what I mean? And keep it quick, little 2 minutes, 5 minutes, that sort of thing. But yeah, it'd be good to have a little reaction on the weekend at some point if we can.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Just to give our views. If you're, are you going to the game or?
Yeah, I'll be there at the game on Saturday. So I am going out straight after. But if obviously depending on result, if you're around Sunday, I can jump on and we can have a chat about it on Sunday, man, for sure. But no, looking forward to it. It should be a cracking game, man.
No, I think so. No, thank you very much, Dave. Before you go, shout out your channel and
so we're at Talking Wolves everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but mainly YouTube. So we do sort of preview shows, our reaction, I give my reaction after the game. We do a little bit of the fans react as well, where fans will come on and give their reaction after the matches as well. So and we do a podcast every week. So yeah, check out the reaction and the podcast will be quite a good. It's a bit like this, a bit more of a lengthy discussion on the match as well. So I appreciate you having me on, man, and looking forward to the game on Saturday.
No, Dave, it's been our pleasure, mate. We've got a legend in the game. You know, you're massive. So the fact that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to Deji Spurs, mate, I'm forever grateful to you, man. And look, more than anything, mate, let's be true to the words. Let's have a good game this weekend, win, lose or draw, and hopefully I'll see you Sunday. And that's for us. Good night, all. Good night. Thanks very much.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.